It's being live streamed. Greetings, dimensions and dementites. Greetings. It's all about doing the production. How are you, folks? Let's see. Let's tune in. I'm doing all the production myself, all the engineering. So one of the things that's annoying is meta, as it's known. Meta. And dementites as the new Facebook thing. It's very meta. Well, I hope you're doing well. I've got I always got to make sure to keep my YouTube window open because a couple folks tune in on YouTube. So that's cool. Whoever tunes in, I'm grateful. Believe me. It's something to do. That makes it sound like I've got got nothing to do, but it's a fun thing on a Monday to do this. It's kind of meditative, actually. Is it COVID? Right? In this time, any cough we have, we think about that. No, not always. But I just tested negative the other day. We did some tests because we had some shows and we were in proximity to some folks. So that was good. Good to play some shows. I chat about that a little bit, but mostly here to talk about what we usually talk about: natural foods, and going meatless just one day a week. Just one day a week. Let's see. It seems like the Google image of the day today is bubble tea. What do you think? Let's take a look. Can I bring you there? What are my ingredients here? Wow, that's as strange as it gets. The Google bubble tea app, That is kind of cool. What Google does different stuff depending on the day, but that's an interesting one. Um, hey, we got Jen watching on YouTube. How's it going, Jen? Good to know you are here. Yeah. Um, what did you have for lunch today? That's one of always the starting points. I had some Ezekiel sprouted bread. I toasted and I tried. We just got some. They were they were giving it away, which is never is that a good sign? But they were giving it away because people just didn't pick up on it. Miyoko's, who does the vegan cream cheeses and stuff, has a vegan cream cheese with lox, fish-free lox. It says, and ordinarily not something I would buy because I don't know from lox. I never really had lox. I can't remember when I ate bagels and cream cheese. Did I ever have them with lox? I don't think so. So they have this cream cheese with lox kind of a thing. It's just like a flavoring, and it was good. If I think of it as just as a plant-based spread, then it was tasty. It was cashews and different herbs and garlic and stuff like that. So that was good. I had that. I had some little bit of steamed kale. I had some chioti chahole, like the curried chickpeas. I was in a hurry. I grabbed a can of the chioti chahole. Very good for times when you're rushed and you just, I was earlier. Although steaming the kale was making something from scratch. Some cherry tomatoes. And what else did I have? Oh, and some just egg. We just had some scrambled just egg, which again they should call it just mung bean because it's like a mung bean protein thing. Anyway, that was good. That's what I had for lunch. What did you have for lunch? Benny Rodriguez. Good to see you, my friend. How are you, man? Hope you're doing well. And David, how are you? David Miranda's here. What's up? David, of course, thinking about most recent time I saw you, I think, was the Jeff Beck concert. Have I seen you since then? I can't remember. It's all a blur. You might have been at another show, but good to see you. Well, tell me what people had for lunch. We're gonna gear up to get our guest on any minute now. My dear friend Doug Gottlieb is going to be my guest today, and here he is in the waiting room. So I'll bring him in just a second, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about music and saving the world and does the papal legitimacy include having a separate city like the Vatican? Is that okay in the 21st century? No, we're not going to get into that. But we're going to get into just about everything else and talk about food and the band. Yes, so we're going to bring him in. And as always, your questions, your comments, things that y'all want to talk about, especially trying new foods, looking at new foods, and trying to say, once a week, let me change my diet. I'm always trying to change my diet, trying to get back to eating more raw, get back to eating more salads and stuff, which usually people do in the spring or summer, but I'm trying to up that in the winter. So that's why I'm sitting in a green rainforest kind of a vibe here, because green is the color of the day. All right, we're going to bring Doug Gottlieb in right now, and let's do some testing. Doug, can you hear me? Check, check. You hear me? I hear some clicking. I hear Doug coming in for a landing. Hello, Douglas. He's getting set with his mic and camera here. And we're gonna meet this gentleman, and he's a photographer. He's an author. He's done a couple of books.
Hey, Andre. Good to see you. How are you, man? Feels like it's been a really long time.
I know. Good to see you, my friend. Let me
Been
let me
living in COVID time, I guess. I don't think I saw you. I saw you before, right before the end of the, right before the pandemic was the last time.
I think yeah, was there a Yes tour late 2019?
Yeah, I think
Was that
that was the last time. Yep, might have been Woodstock, New York. I think was probably the last time I've seen you. It's
so
been feels like a million
it's
years.
it's been a while. Let's hope it's not the last time, but yes, it was the
Absolutely, it's really good to see you. You're
it,
looking
it
well.
it was the most recent time. Thanks, man. You're looking great. You're looking great too. And today I was about to come on and I grabbed my Yes mug so I can
Right on.
have some. Look, I like how that disappears when you got the
Right,
green
everything
screen,
disappears if you hold it up.
the green screen stuff. But I got my Yes mug. It responds to temperature, so it changes colors.
Nice,
With
nice.
the hot coffee. And then I was like, as soon as I was sitting down, I was like, oh, I should have my Yes hoodie on. I should. Well, I do have a Moog. Look at this new Moog shirt I got, which
Very cool.
the Moog
Very, very
logo.
cool.
So I got that. So I'm representing a bit of history there. But well, great to see you, man. And we got a couple people tuning in. I'm gonna let people know who you are, and we'll do that a bit. But Doug is one of the famous Gottlieb brothers. I mean, I will say some would say infamous, some would say famous, but
Most people
Doug,
would just say who?
yeah, yeah, uh, not who, yes, yeah, yeah. We could play who's on first, right? But right, but Doug and his brother Glenn, in their official profile, it says very accurately they've produced dozens of album and video package designs. So they do package design for these a lot of releases, DVDs, Blu-ray, and CD releases that have come out, even some vinyl releases. They've done a lot of production of tour merchandise,
Mhm.
and they've been involved in writing biographies and lots of interviews with every member of Yes, which is an amazing accomplishment over the years. And I first got one of their books 20 some years ago, so they've been doing this for a while. They have photographed the band since 1980, so you guys were kids,
Yep, we
and
were.
the Gottliebs have an enormous archive of classic images of many bands, but specifically Yes, one of their favorite bands. So we're gonna talk a little about that. Um, and well, let's start there, man. What is Yes your favorite band? Or would you say
Yeah, I
there's
mean,
no?
it's kind of amazing. They've been my favorite band since I was a kid, fairly young teenager. And growing up in a time I was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s, and at the risk of sounding like an old guy, back in those old days, music was sort of your tribe, it was your identity, it
Right.
was everything. And I was listening to a lot of what's now called classic rock. It wasn't, it was just music then. And but when I found Yes, it was just, you know, that's it. That's my band, that's my all time, and has remained so right up to this day. And
So
it's kind of an amazing thing that, you know, a band like that, all-time favorite group is not only still together, but still making just phenomenal, phenomenal music. And been really privileged. My brother and I have gotten to know them over the years and have worked with them and become friendly with them. But your favorite band ever, to get to know them, to realize how cool they are and as nice people as and to actually be able to work with them is just, it's such a dream. Really, absolutely fantastic time.
that's great. That what a great. Yeah, you're right. What a great story to have someone. Yeah, you grow up with, and you're reading interviews and magazines on them, and then next thing you know, you're working with and for them. Tell me, what was your first time hearing Yes? Like, because
Yeah, it's funny
often we
because
remember like what.
it's I can picture it clear as day. It was at Madison Square Garden in New York. I was in high school, early middle years in high school, sitting in Madison Square Garden at you know the top row of the top deck in that old extension that they used to have that went even higher.
Oh,
There was
wow!
literally nobody
Wow!
behind me. I was in the highest
Right!
possible seat in 1978 for the Tormato tour. I had been a fan for a couple of years, but I finally got up the guts to jump on a train and go into Manhattan, to see a
Right!
concert. And it was just mind blowing. It was basically a little kid, or kid in this like crazy, giant arena with, there they were,
Right, right.
this amazing band. And I thought, wow, how did those people ever get seats like on the floor,
Oh, the other people, right, right.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, how do you possibly, score that? Because it was always, waiting online at Ticketron or
Ticket. Yep, that
I
was
think it
the
was called
original.
Ticketron at the
Yeah,
time.
sure.
And just cut to all these years later, and you know, we know the guys, which
Right.
is
You
kind of
you
kind of
walk in.
amazing.
So that's obviously that's the first time you saw them live, and
Mm.
I'm Team Tormato. How about you? Because that
I
splits
love
yesterday.
Tormato. Sure, that was my it was my first concert, so that alone, and hearing that music before the album came out. So in those days, they would frequently be on tour before the album was released. So I was hearing those songs for the first time live,
Right,
which
right,
was just amazing. Um,
right.
but yeah, there's no bad Yes album, and there's certainly no and anything in the '70s, it's going
Sure.
to be phenomenal,
Y-
phenomenal.
Yeah, you're right. Even the albums that didn't do great commercially for Yes, or
Mm,
that that maybe like Tails gets the um the criticism it ran too long. I could see that. There's a little editing there, but great album though. I mean,
oh, great album.
and Termato gets a lot of crap from people. I don't understand. I think it's great. It's really just different, and kind of has some real killer rhythm section playing on it, especially.
Phenomenal. Yeah, also just great
That's it.
stuff.
You
I
know,
always feel like the weirder Yes gets and the more tangents that they take, the more I like it,
likewise. Yep.
They've always been committed to not repeating themselves and to pushing forward. And I think Tormato was another example of that. It was them
That's
evolving.
that.
Sometimes, they evolve into a direction that continues. Sometimes they come, they swing back and continue forward. But great stuff on Tormato. It was great
Absolutely.
hearing some of that music on this most recent tour.
I saw
They
that
played
they
a little bit
pulled.
of yeah, which was phenomenal. Silent Wings.
I
Just great to hear that again.
I saw they pulled that out. So Tomato was your first concert. Can you remember the first time hearing them, like on the radio? Like, do you remember that moment of like, hang on, what was that? And was it like Roundabout or something? What was your first?
Well, it's really funny. The first time I ever heard them was putting on an album that I had purchased. So I in those days just always, going through to record stores and record departments and department stores and flipping through bins. And I was aware of Yes because I was always on the lookout for something new and you know, wanted to just listen to everything that was out there.
Sure.
And I'd seen that logo around, of course, in
Right.
school.
Oh
I'd seen
yeah,
it on
yeah.
painted on the sides of like custom vans in the
Uh huh.
'70s.
Uh huh.
And it's like, wow, what's that? It looks really interesting. And flipping through their albums in a department store, I came across Yes Songs, um, which was three album set. This mind blowing painting by Roger Dean,
Right.
and thought I'm gonna check this out. I want to know what this sounds like, you know. And that was the first time I'd ever heard Yes. Was
Wow.
triple live album and
That's
remains my probably my favorite album of all time. Just
well. That's kind of special that it was a visual thing that brought you in.
yeah,
Um. W-
absolutely. I mean, Roger Dean is also a hero and
sure.
friend, and as generous as he is talented, just
Sure.
like the band. So all these things sort of converge.
It's great. I didn't know that, but that puts a beautiful twist to the story. We're gonna jump back and forth today in your time here, just talking about your creative side, and of course, we're here largely to talk about the food side and your plant based journey.
Yeah, this is like
Um,
this checks all the boxes for me, Andre. We're
uh,
talking get a chance to talk about plant-based eating and veganism, and yes,
and yes,
this doesn't get any better for me.
yeah. So just so people know, and I'll put some links in the chat, just so people
Mhm.
know. And this is on the Yes website. Again, the Gottlieb brothers have done years of the official programs for Yes. They've done all the photography, and I've had the pleasure of being at. As most people know, I worked for most of the decade 2011 to 21 for
Mm,
Yes.
mm.
There's a couple years in the middle there. I was working for um, Greg Lake and some other people, but a great bunch of years with Yes, and a number of times the Gottliebs would appear at the rehearsals to do that year's official portraits and photographs. So it's very cool. Um, so this article is a great one. You can try to find it, and it's written by Doug and Glenn, and it's a lot of great historic pictures. Of course, some that they didn't take. Some of these are 50-year-old pictures, like that one of Steve. But you'll find in this article some of their work and some of their history. Tell us a little bit about that. How did you meet? Yes. How did you? What was the first time you said, "Hey, we're photographers and we'd love to," or how did it happen? What was the?
Yeah, it would have been probably around 1989 or so. And Glenn and I had been publishing a fanzine about Yes. This is early days of computers, and I was really psyched about early Macintosh and what used to be called desktop publishing
Right.
back in the day. And so we were publishing a fanzine for Yes. And out of the blue one day, I was always sending it off to the band, but to their management office, but never thought much more of it. And one day out of the blue, I had a message on my answering machine from John Anderson.
Wow.
And I said, "This is John, got your magazine, think it's great. Would love to talk to you and tell you what's going on with the band right now. And give me a call."
Wow.
And that was, I was like, that was my head, exploded, and eventually found the courage to call him back. And this was right as he had left Yes official to start Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe.
Sure. Okay. Right.
And met the guys invited us down to down to rehearsals, and met the band. And we've known them ever since, really.
That's
It's
beautiful.
just phenomenal. And yeah, as you mentioned, we've been really fortunate to have met all of the various past, and present members. Got to know them a little bit. Really, really talented, amazingly talented, and nice bunch of people.
That's great. What a great entry. So you had something that was excellent, and they got wind of it, and that got your foot in the door. There's a lesson there for everyone. Just do some shit and do it really well.
Oh wow,
And
there it is. Yep,
then
that was our
so
magazine, which
yeah. So we're pulling
started
this
out
up.
as a kind of a humble black and white thing, but we were trying to put some production value into it, and ended up being color by the time we were done.
That's great. Yeah, there's the cover, and I'll put the link here to the Gottlieb Brothers site, which has got a bunch of cool stuff and some, other stuff about their photography and design work. Um, and again, folks, you hear me mentioning another brother, Glenn, who this happened organically. I'm very good friends with Glenn, also, who also is on a plant-based journey too, right? He said
He is, yeah.
he's
We both are hardcore.
That's awesome. So no reason that Glenn's not here other than I was talking to Doug. But if Glenn's listening, he's welcome to jump in if he's not in the middle of work or something. But let's talk a little bit about the plant-based connection, because what's interesting to me is this is a band that when I went vegetarian, which is going to be 40 years this year.
Wow, I'm
Yeah,
so envious that
and,
you were on this, and I can't believe I didn't know we never had this conversation until sort of like the very recently.
yeah, right, exactly. At one of the rehearsals or something, but end of '83 was when I started looking into it. But I'm bringing that up only to bridge to that something that I still think is important when you're getting into something new, whether it's you're learning about jogging or mountain climbing or Buddhism or knitting or whatever human venture that might be. In this case, for me, it was looking at animal rights and vegetarianism and stuff. when you're doing any of those things, you kind of look around and be like, oh wow, this artist I like or this author I like is into Buddhism, so maybe I'll read one of their interviews. Or this other one is into, miniature boat building, whatever the thing is. I
Hmm.
think it's always useful to kind of look around. So for me, I remember learning very early on all these people like Paul McCartney is a vegetarian, and Jeff Beck, ironically, who we just lost. Um, uh, uh, and uh, but the guys in Yes, I remember reading about. Wow, these guys they had a health food store at one point. They had all this. So tell me a little bit. A, when did you find that kind of stuff out? And B, what was your first moment of like, wait a minute, what's on my plate? Like, tell us a little bit about that. How did it get here for you?
Yeah, that's really interesting because we've known Steve probably best of all, Steve Howe, yes, his guitar player, who's been vegetarian, and I think was from that very day when they had the store, has remained vegetarian strictly throughout his life. And he always used to talk about, he would talk about vegetarianism, and so it's fascinating to me. But until more recently, I've been vegan now for about 5 years, and it always felt very kind of unapproachable to me. I never really, understood it. Um, and like many people, I think in the Western world, you just kind of grow up in a bubble, and it's the norm, is eating eating terribly, inflicting harm on animals that we never see. That's abstracted to the point where your food doesn't resemble what it is. It's not even called what it is. It's called burger, not chopped up cow. It's called, you know, it's hidden.
Right.
And my daughter, when she was very, very young, had an extreme reaction to a fish market as we were watching on TV,
Mm.
and from that time forward was pushing the family to be vegetarian and to not eat animals. And again, we stayed in our bubble, and thought, oh, nutrition, we can't do that when she's so young,
Right.
and we protected her from that nutritional deficit for a while. And eventually, we said, okay, she's a little bit older, she was early teen. We'll do this, she can do this. And me wanting to, also feeling like, hey, I love animals. I'm going to be vegan, I'm going to do this
Hmm.
too. And I thought, I'll support her, but this sounds like a good idea. You know, yeah, I don't want to eat animals,
Right.
And that was all I did. I spent a year eating without educating myself, without thinking about anything other than reading the label to make sure there was no animal product in it. I was quote unquote vegan, I thought,
Okay.
and I wasn't. I wasn't eating animals,
Right.
but I didn't know what being a vegan was, or I thought I was not eating animals and that was enough. So I ate junk food and became really unhealthy. Just
Sure.
living on chips and cookies, and Oreo cookies
Sure.
are vegan.
Right. Right.
Vegan isn't a diet, as you know. It's an ethical stance about animal cruelty. I didn't realize that then, so I did it for about a year, very unsuccessfully, and briefly went back to eating meat and thought, I just this just feels wrong. I need to educate myself. I felt terrible, and I started to educate myself about what veganism was
Sure.
and about eating healthy.
Sure.
And as you start to do that, once you really start to see what happens to animals, um, what the food production in really in the Western world looks like, you can't unsee it, and you can't go back. It's a very hard thing to do. At least it's for me, it is. And at that point, I realized this is not a diet. This is an ethical stance. I want to do this. I want to be healthy. And again, doing that research, you start to realize that eating a whole food plant-based diet is really creates a virtuous cycle. It it benefits you, which is
Right.
great. It benefits the animals, of course, because you're not slaughtering them, and it benefits the planet. And the more you look into it, you realize that this is how we're supposed to live, really. The health concerns around it, and I'm by no means anywhere close to a medical expert, but you start to look into the studies that have been done, and the books. I don't know if you probably know, like Caldwell Esselstyn and Michael Greger and Dean Ornish, these renowned doctors who've done peer-reviewed scientific medical research on whole food, plant-based.
Sure.
And it becomes incredibly evident that you're not only saving the animals and the planet, but your own body, and preventing horrible late life disease that so many people face.
Yeah.
And I've had a front row seat to seeing some of that with various family members over the years,
Yeah.
um, who ate the classic Western diet, or even a bad version of it.
Sure.
And at that time, I didn't put it together, but I just assumed, that was what's in store for all of us, and it doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. No, that's great. And you raised several real key points there that I wanted to jot down and come back to, which is two things. First of all, the spiritual, ethical part, which I'm just starting to really remind people more of that. The older I get, I'm going to be 58 in about not even 2 weeks. So you think about stuff on your birthday, and
Yep.
I more and more finding the need to say to people, this is a spiritual practice, and because I have you're always going to have people who just don't take it seriously. I've got friends who decades in really still ask me, like, oh, do you still, yeah, it's real, this is not something I'm trying on for and for effect, or for just to see what it's like for a summer or something. And it made me realize that what I have not done is give myself the credit that it's a spiritual slash ethical. It's just as if I had picked, an ashram to go to and to become, dedicated to a certain Buddhist way of life,
Mhm.
or like a monk or something like that. And I'm picking those examples because those are outside of the norm, and they mean you are walking away from some typical stuff that we all think we have to do.
Right.
Um, those are the only parallels there. I don't think it's a religion per se, but there's some crossover
Hmm.
between taking seriously the parts and pieces of it. So that's great to hear you say. The second thing that I think that you said that's very important, that I'm also trying to bring up a lot, is the idea of the Oreo vegans, the ones who are eating potato chips, Oreos, tater tots, kind of no salad, no fruit, no good fats and things. And I think
Mhm.
that's become increasingly important because I'm seeing more and more people, for instance, attacking, Impossible Burgers as if that's all we eat, or attacking,
Those
vegan
are the extremes,
marshmallows.
right? Either all we eat is lettuce. How can you live on just that? Or,
Yeah,
oh, your Impossible Burger, is as
sure.
unhealthy as anything else,
Yeah,
and like, to somebody who's not aware of this stuff, maybe it does seem that way. And
maybe it does.
I'm, being sort of a new vegan by relative standards, certainly by, relative to your journey. Um, it's not that long ago, and it's still very fresh in my own mind how I looked at people who were vegans, or it was hippies, or
Right, right,
and I think, or one of those guys who says, oh, but bacon, or
right.
says something, makes some stupid joke about it, or dismisses it. And I think in my own case, I don't know if I was fully guilty of that, but brushing aside the notion of even trying it, I think most people, or many people, it stirs, hearing about veganism and animal rights. There's a, if it's not conscious, there's a subconscious discomfort when that's raised, and when your participation and your role in that suffering um, is before you, you want to say, oh, that's not me.
Right.
It's and you don't want to face it. And I think I, for many years, didn't want to face it,
Right.
to the point where that cognitive dissonance sort of builds up and builds up and builds up, and
Sure.
eventually you have to face it.
You have to
And
move. Sure.
once you've seen it, there's no going back. That's why people who don't really know will say to me, and who think it's a diet, would you ever, don't you have cheat days?
Right.
As if it's it is a diet.
Right. As if
And I
it's
would
yeah.
say, if it was a diet, yeah, I would have cheat days, because I would say, oh, I'm going to cheat today and
Have a
not
cookie.
worry about
Yeah.
eating unhealthily.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a cheat day to a vegan, that doesn't exist. If you're cheating, somebody has died.
Yeah. Yeah.
An individual has lost its life so that you can have a 15-minute meal.
Right. Right.
Uh, that's it's a non-thing,
Sure.
I'm not going to cheat that. And the other thing I hear frequently is, oh, don't you miss this? Don't you miss that? Don't you miss cheese? Don't you miss bacon? Don't you miss
Right.
whatever? Um, and the answer is really, honestly, it's no for me. And I
Yeah.
guess some people have cravings, and there's
Sure.
things that we all love to eat. But I was eating probably such a limited diet, um, pre going plant-based and pre being
Okay.
vegan.
Uh,
It was easy to go out at lunch and get a slice of pizza or some, Chinese food chicken or tacos or, whatever. I was eating, a junky American diet, a
sure.
burger, you
Sure.
know. Um, and it was always those things. It was
Right.
those American junk food, fast food
It's the
things,
same six foods. Right.
same six foods. And now, there's a bazillion plants, that
Yeah.
I can eat, and things that I never had eaten before, vegetables that I had never eaten before.
It's a great
Um,
point. It's a great
and
point.
I eat
So
so
you
much more
expanded.
variety now than I ever did,
So you expanded your diet when you.
by 1,000%.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
another super important part to me because we almost put up with the comments and the outside descriptions. People will say, like, well, just for instance, when you go on a new tour, which I do from time to time,
Mhm.
and they'll ask any dietary restrictions, and it's funny. I'll say, well, I don't find it a restriction, but I'm plant based. I'm vegan, and just to start that conversation, because
Mhm.
because and people rankle at that. They're like, well, you're leaving out so much. That tends to be the vibe. And
Where do you
then
get your protein?
there's right, that's
Sure.
part two. But there's this thing I think we have to keep doing a lot of work to break this notion that we're limiting. It's so limited. Yet when I look at what I typically have in a 5 day period, um, one day may be Thai food, another day may be salads, and the next day might be Middle Eastern, the
Mhm.
next day might be, some version of Italian dish with either just vegetables or some sort of beyond meatballs or something. Uh, um, the next day might just be a tempeh sandwich. The next day might be, some other in the Asian spectrum of foods, which I love.
Mhm.
Um, Round and round it goes. The next day, a Peruvian place. But and I'm just interested that we hear that a lot, that we're limited, yet some of the people saying that are having the same chicken breast sandwich every day,
Yep.
split up with a burger or with tacos. Tell me a little bit about some of your favorite foods. Like, what are your favorite two or three of your favorite foods from around the world that
Yeah,
you know?
I anything that's got a lot of spice in it is going to be good for me. But
Right.
you know, since getting off of like the sugar and highly processed things also, I find that I have new appreciation. And this sounds impossible. This would have sounded impossible to me, 8 years ago.
Okay.
Um, but even the most plain, you know, brown rice and broccoli, and any kind of vegetable, really tastes good. And I'm perfectly happy to have, I to have brown rice and a steamed vegetable and maybe a tiny bit of like coconut aminos or even soy sauce on top.
That's
Um,
great.
And but really, sky's the limit. I've never had a bad vegan meal. I don't know if
That's great. You're lucky.
are you familiar with Happy Cow? Do you use that app ever?
Yeah, right, where you can find restaurants and stuff. I have, yeah, I've used that once or twice. Yeah.
As somebody who's on the road and traveling, I highly recommend it. It's free. It's
Right.
all community driven by vegans, and it does exactly that. It lets you find vegan food, nearby, and
Around.
with community reviews. Just
Yeah,
tremendous.
I, I'm really lucky how touring has evolved to where it's incredible. Like I don't even think about it, and I'm really lucky to be on tours. Actually, there are no tours these days where you're alone and you're the only plant-based person. Like
Mhm.
25 years ago, maybe there was a tour or two, but even then, there'd always be one person who's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm pescatarian, or I'm this or that, or I like to eat lighter on the road." There was always someone that was an ally, and now it's incredible. Now I go on tours, four, five, six people are some variation of vegetarian or vegan or pescatarian or I just did some shows with Paul from uh, Carl Palmer's band, and
Amazing guitar player. And I
amazing.
saw the Nosferatu
Yeah,
thing in your feed.
yeah,
Wow,
that's what
amazing.
that's what we just did. And he, for instance, is he was joking around about the name. He's a oh man, bivalvetarian. He's kind of looking for a word because he doesn't eat animals other than bivalves like mollusks and
Mhm.
I guess that would be what else would be in there, um, oysters maybe
Maybe.
but so an interesting little niche where he's like, you know what, that doesn't, hey, and that's cool, whatever different pathways people take, but it's great that on tours these days every tour is very aware and very ready, and there's vegan food being catered and delivered. I think that's the part too that I'd like you to speak to that too. In the years that you've gotten into it, tell me how you feel about the um, normalization of it or the evolution of it. Because just in the years you and I've been talking about it, wow, every fast food chain has some options now. Not that we're saying go eat fast food, but
Well,
if you're stuck,
phenomenal. But if you're on the
yeah,
road and you're traveling on a highway and you want to
yeah,
pull off and go to like uh, you can go to Burger King,
yeah, yeah.
if you
T-
have to. Like, not that we're recommending that, but you
right,
could.
right.
You can go to Burger King and get an Impossible Whopper, which tastes just like a Whopper.
It's tell me a little bit how that's impacted maybe your interacting with others who thought this was so weird a few years ago, but now seeing. Tell me if that's been on your radar, like how it's changed the discussion for you.
It definitely has, as it's everywhere. You can't not see it, and you can't not see it on social media, certainly, but just in the world, as you say, it's everywhere, which is phenomenal. And I think we're approaching, hopefully, a tipping point where it will become the roles will reverse, and people will look at you like you're still eating animals, why, why would you do that? We're a long way from that, but we can hope. But yeah, it's I'm fortunate to live in a major metropolitan area, so there's there's no shortage of options both for restaurants, but also, I mean, living in an affluent country, you know every grocery store in the country has their biggest department is vegan. It's called the produce section. you know? And the canned goods section, if you're not buying fresh, or the frozen food section, you're not going to have a hard time finding spinach, or or for the most part. I mean, there are food deserts everywhere,
Right, but
but by and
generally,
large, you know it's pretty easy to do. um and people talk about the expense of eating vegan. And yeah, if you go out to a Michelin restaurant and try to
right,
have a vegan meal, it's going to cost you some money. But
or
there's
shop at Whole
no
Foods.
more inexpensive way to eat than out of the produce section,
You know,
rice and beans, and that's one of the healthiest things you can possibly consume is
it's
rice and beans.
very true. I find myself in this discussion a lot, and absolutely, if you're only shopping at Whole Foods, which some people think that's, and I see people all the time that try it out, and you kind of go, you did it wrong. You went to Whole Foods, you bought a lot of just frozen, prepared type things that
Mhm.
microwavable even at the worst. So I think we still have a struggle with message here for quite some time to get people to realize that um, learning how to cook a half dozen basic things, a lentil soup, how to make a hummus or a bean dip or something, how to make falafel, how to make a noodle dish, a soup of some sort, how to make a curry, how to bake some root vegetables. Right? If you got those six things down, how
Super
to
easy.
saute some tempeh and onions and garlic, all of which dirt cheap. Trust me, folks, because I'm not rich now, never have been, and there's times I've been, yeah, really, really bad, and you know, going out to the car and looking for change under the seats. I'm not exaggerating, and as a musician, as a creative, you go through those periods, and all through those periods, stayed on a plant-based diet because it's the one when you only have a little bit of money, you can get a bag of black beans, not even the can, because the bag is cheaper,
Yep.
and you soak it, and so you're hitting some great points. Um, I want to jump back a little bit. I want to show. I'm going to warn people. Graphic image here. This I sent Doug this picture before, but it touches on some of the things we were talking about, and it's this infamous picture. I didn't come up with it. Someone did, but what a great concept, I think, because I'm sure people looking at that just went, "Oh God, it's a cat," and that's the point. But now that you know it's just a few pieces of chicken,
Right.
uh,
Just it's just a few chickens died for that
exactly,
meal, right?
exactly right. You put the air quotes up for me when I say just. But I want to ask anyone watching your thoughts on this. If you do eat chicken, you do eat flesh. I want to ask what that's like to be to have revulsion for that split second that you think it's a cat, that it's a living being, sentient animal that's going to run away from pain. That's a very important distinction because people always say, "Oh, how about don't let us feel pain." We're pretty clear on evolutionary, um, um, on the general aspects of how evolution uh, exhibits itself across organisms, and ones that run and can attack you back with claws and fangs, or spraying poison in your face. Animals, organisms do what they will to get away from you. Plants, obviously, some of them are poison because they're trying to repel us. And I'm not saying that plants don't feel pain. We don't know. I don't. They certainly don't feel it the way animals do. They don't have a nervous system. But I'm willing to say, yeah, sure, maybe plants existentially are going through a death that we would care about. But it's so far away from the pain your cat feels when you kick it by accident, or something, another animal bites it or something. So people see this and they right away know a cat feels pain and hurts and would not want to be on the grill like this. But then they're okay if it's a chicken. Talk to us about that a little bit, Doug. Have you had that kind of conversation with people, and how does it?
Yeah,
What are some of the
absolutely.
things you do
Yeah,
to
the
yeah,
concept, the concept is the word is speciesism, right? It's why do some animals get to be pets and others have to be food? And there really is no good reason. I mean, it's a cultural thing and it's a societal thing, but other cultures do eat dogs, do eat cats, do eat, and who are we to judge those cultures if we're eating, if we're slaughtering billions of animals of similar, well, certainly sentience and intelligence and emotional quotient. Um, so it's a slippery slope. At what point does an animal life have value to us? And one of the other eye-opening things for me, I live in a very small, very crowded apartment with two other people,
Okay.
my wife and daughter, a very crowded New York apartment with a few animals who are mostly adopted. And we're in a building that doesn't permit dogs or cats, but we've always wanted an animal, and we had an opportunity to adopt and rescue an animal that is food in many in many cultures, and it was an animal that I always thought of as being somehow less or lower. Not that I would have eaten this animal, but I never thought it would be a personality or sophisticated, kind of
Sure.
a pet store animal, a rabbit. Just amazing personality and intelligence and affection. Um, we have two sort of rescue lizards who are distinct personalities between them, who are completely
Wow.
different individuals. One I can hand feed raspberries every morning, and the other is kind of a little terror. He's a bit aggressive, let's just say. um, but at what point it makes you realize, at what point are they not individuals? And
Right.
to me, the answer is there is no point. They're all individuals. They're all sentient, thinking, feeling beings that um, that I can imagine doing harm to. you know.
Doing harm. Yeah. Yeah.
So to your point, why how horrible to eat a cat or a dog. It's it is horrible, but it's no more horrible than eating a pig or a cow or a chicken or or any other sentient being. They all are capable of being of of sentience. um
Yeah. Absolutely. And with an with an intentional kind of factory driven way, especially of treating them. And that's something I talk about on the show all the time. I tell people, hey, let's draw the line between that person in Vermont who has grass fed cows and they're getting the milk and stuff like that. I'm not a fan per se, but
mhm.
it's light years better than um, the factories and the concrete floors and the fluorescent lights that are the norm. Um, what do you say when people say that? Well, harvesting corn and wheat and beets kills mice. It kills the occasional bird or certainly insects and rodents and
Yeah,
things.
no, it's
What do you say to that?
I say it's terrible, and it's not it's not the point. It's the whole point of veganism is to avoid and minimize and completely avoid unnecessarily unnecessary suffering and harm to animals, and to continue to work towards that not happening in farming process. And I think we're going to get there with vertical farms,
Right.
and other methods. But this it's kind of a red herring when people put up those arguments to me, um, because the slaughter is not the point in those instances, and it's no less horrible that a field mouse would be harmed in harvesting crops, or pesticides, but it's not the point, and it's not it's it's not what's providing our food.
Right.
It's 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 a very unfortunate collateral damage, that
That we can seek to reduce with
that
as you're
we're
saying.
actively seeking to reduce. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
whole point. So it's a false equivalence, and it's a diversionary tactic, usually by people who are uncomfortable, with their own choices and are looking
What
for a way
that's
out,
yeah.
I think. And I I try not to hold that against them. It's hard to, on this sort of a journey. I think many people go through a similar, sort of phase when you're new to it, and you're really outraged by what you're seeing. The inclination is to is to get on social media and and confront people and be accusatory
Sure,
and in
sure.
your face, and that's fine. Um, but I think it's important to also realize that very few people are born into a vegan family and born vegan. We're all
Absolutely.
we're all to a degree responsible for the world that we're living in, and I try not to be too judgmental of people who haven't
Great. No, that's
who
great.
haven't haven't seen it yet, because
That's
I was
great.
one of those people until 5 years ago. Um, so
That's
I get
great.
it.
That's a great attitude. Um, that's great. I want to go back to some cool yes stories, but anyone with questions, feel free to weigh in if anyone's got some questions about anything really. But any stuff we're talking about with Doug today, we got about 12 viewers. Cool. Jack says, yeah, Jack, Bivalve um, is a town in South Jersey. How about that? And sure enough, look at that. I never knew that. Look at that. There it is, Bivalve, New Jersey.
Well,
Um, where is that? Down in the south, I guess. Where is it? Oh yeah, it's way down, like in Delaware Bay. Okay, who knew? Bivalve, New Jersey. How about that? I was today years old. Gee, I wonder why they named it that. Right, but that's a whole part of Jersey I don't know anything about. But anyway, yeah, folks, if you have any questions, feel free to weigh in. Todd Reynolds, how are you, my friend? David had to split. Sharon, how are you? Sharon, are you dialing in from England? We're going to talk about England in a second, so maybe um, coming back to some of the music stuff and some of the music influences. As you said, our dear friend Steve Howe, who I've worked with for many years, and Steve, as Steve would point out, I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegan. He would make sure, because he's a classic Englishman. He has his tea with his milk. Don't mess with that. And I respect that. That's he has
sure.
that, but he's very dedicated to animals and to suffering. He is, and he also points out he's pescatarian. He will occasionally have some fish on the road. But other than that, you have things like "Don't Kill the Whale" and other songs that talk about the environment and this fragile planet we have. The album "Fragile" with that drawing of the Earth. I mean, those guys were thinking about that stuff early on. Have you had any conversations with Steve or other Yes people about you know animals and the environment and kind of have you had that conversation?
Um, a, not a great deal. I mean, we've had lots of meals with Steve. He's aware that I'm vegan and super supportive, of it. And we've had meals, lots, many meals together where, that's he orders his thing, I order my thing.
Yeah.
um, it's always nice to do. Certainly, the whole band is very environmentally conscious, I think, and ethics conscious. Um, it, Honestly, though, it's not a thing. We haven't talked a lot about veganism.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. But just in general, having been there, of course, for years, very supportive. Yeah. No one. It
well,
always
super
sucks when
supportive.
you're.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Always sucks when you're in an environment where someone thinks it's something to make fun of or whatever. No, all those guys, really great, and some of them have been various vegetarian or vegetarian adjacent. I know the singer John Davidson. He was also pescatarian for most of the time I was there. I don't know right now, but super fit guy, super healthy guy, all into
Super
organic
fit, super
food,
healthy.
and I know Billy's dabbled a bit with eating veg for a season and stuff. So I love that. I love that they approach it with like, you know what, I'm gonna do that this summer, or I'm gonna do this on the weekends, just because they know they feel good.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
wondering, Andre, have you mentioned like people will like make a joke or say something. I haven't experienced too much of that, maybe a little bit. But outside of working with Yes, but in my day job, colleagues who are aware, will be talking about food, and they'll feel compelled to apologize. I barbecued this weekend, sorry, Doug. like,
Yeah, I
dude,
get that too.
it's a weird vibe, It's like, oh, I'm making you feel bad about your choice, or like, why are you apologizing to me?
Yeah,
Apologize to who you ate, if you're going to
exactly.
apologize.
No,
Um,
that's always a really interesting area because I always go, "You do you." I don't, and depending on the person, if I know them well enough, I'll say just that. I'll say apologize to the chickens or the turkey, whatever. But it's also great that a seed has been planted. People are thinking, wow, that there's to even have to apologize for something. It's interesting. Um,
it's worth
so
it. It's worth having a little bit of social awkwardness, I feel,
yeah, yeah,
if it's making them think a little bit about what they're
that
doing. And
that's
eventually they'll come around, because that's how I started,
that's it. That's it.
And once you start
Um,
to know, you can't unknow it.
that's it. Tell people a little bit too about what you and Glenn do generally, because again, I put the link there. They've got the GottliebBrothers.com, and if you .com, it takes you to this page, and you can see right on it they're doing photography, product management. Tell us a little bit about some of the other stuff you do outside of Yes. Like, what other bands or organizations are you working for that you can talk about?
Yeah, it's honestly, in terms of in the music industry, it's been mostly Yes or Yes related.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we both have graphic design backgrounds, and photography backgrounds, and are writers, and interested in technology. And so, in my background, I spent 10 years at Rolling Stone magazine, at working on the .com side. So I
Wow,
was creative director for RollingStone.com for 10 years,
wow,
fun period of their history, from so I guess it was January 1997 till the end of 2006.
okay.
Um, so we launched their website and America Online property, and got to work with a number of amazing artists, and uh, people that I really loved, and really talented, smart people at the company. Um, I've also done product. I worked at Sony Music for a number of years, also on the digital side, and we put together um, the websites for about 100, Sony artists. Unfortunately, missed Yes and Anderson Bruford Wakeman Howe just by a year or two.
Just
Would have
yeah.
been fun. But I was there for a couple of years, and I did digital product development at Barnes and Noble, which is a large American bookseller, and was there as a creative director and a digital product manager, to help launch our, at the time, the ebook platform was brand new, called Nook,
Oh yeah,
and was uh, one of the first digital product managers on that project as well.
that's
So
great.
kind of a
Yeah.
combination of technology and creative stuff has been my background always, and continues to be. I'm working for a large publishing company today on the technology side,
That's
but
fantastic.
strategy and digital and direct to consumer.
Wow. No, that what a wide ranged career, and I didn't know a bunch of that. I didn't know. I knew you had done some stuff for Rolling Stone, but I thought as an outside contractor. But no, involved in RollingStone.com and the website and the graphics of it for years. That's fantastic, as well as Barnes and Noble. Not to be trifled. Um, uh, uh, Folks, you're seeing some shots here from one of the tours that I did with Doug and his brother Glenn, and they would show up to multiple dates. This is a tour we did called the Royal Affair, and it was John Lodge from Moody Blues, Asia, three of the original members of Asia, and then yes, of course, headlining. So, and I imagine these are all Gottlieb Brothers pictures, correct?
They are, yeah, yeah.
That's
These are all
great.
these are all ours.
So yeah, and a lot of their pictures end up, as I said, in the booklets, in the album covers. It's really you see them throughout the Yes, the websites and stuff like that. And oh, cool! What an honor! I get mentioned here with all my tech brothers: John Walsh, Steve Risman, Pat Higgins, myself. Wendy Daly. This is a great little thank you to a bunch of us. Van Williams and Wade. Yeah, that's great. This
Yeah,
is a cool little
yeah,
page.
that series of photos was intended to just sort of capture the entire production. Um, yes, I've been pretty blessed to have amazing crews over the years. Recent years in particular, just spectacular uh, stage production and what the crew does to put these shows on, as you know full well, just mind blowing. You know, the level of expertise and to pull that off every night and move it to another city, set it
Right.
up, and do it again. But at that level, and to have it look the way it looks and sounds every night, it's just it, unimaginable, really.
No, it's amazing.
Just phenomenal. So we were trying to document. You know, we're one of our obsessions is to sort of document and photograph the band and try to capture in a still frame what it feels like to be at the show, or to be hearing and experiencing the music.
Right.
It's an impossible task. We'll never get that picture, but that's what we're always looking for. To find an image that conveys the excitement and the the feeling of being there and hearing that music live.
That's great. Well, here a question on kind of some of your passions colliding and whether this is something we can look forward to. Do you do any photography? Well, one of the things that I think is blowing up right now is, in a good way, and I follow a bunch of Instagram accounts. Is again the plant-based thing. I'm seeing all these food trucks now, all these vegan and vegetarian food trucks that some of them I follow, new restaurants, people, tons of people doing recipes, doing some things. Um, and tell me if you, like in New York City, do you go to any events or fairs or different things where you say, "Oh wow, this is beautiful food." Do you do any photography in that in your plant based world?
Oh, interesting. I photographed a an animal rights demonstration in New York, which was a lot of fun. It was a march, basically.
Hmm.
That was great. I did it unofficially. I just kind of followed the march and sort of documented because it was a passion thing.
Yeah.
Um, haven't done food photography. It's a really specialized skill set.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be worth it just to get some to eat some of the eat some of the sets after we're done
Right. Right.
photographing. Um, so I've been passionate about just trying to try out a bunch of different vegan restaurants in New York City and hit them all.
Right.
That's been a thing, um, and sort of document and record those. That's a little side project we're working on right now, just
Yeah.
visiting restaurants
Oh,
and
that's great. That's great.
photographing. Yeah.
Yeah, because being in New York, I see a whole bunch of stuff. First off, you've heard of Plantega? It's this thing that they're doing at different bodegas and stuff. Do you know about that?
A little bit, but that
Yeah. So just so people know, it's the word plant, like plant or plant based, and bodega combined. And I don't know who came up with it, but it's this plant based food group that is enlisting bodegas and delis in New York City. I'll put a link in, as I always do. I'll put a link in, but they're actually going to delis and bodegas and teaching them, hey, here's how we can provide a half dozen plant based items besides the ones you already have, of course, right? Every store
Mhm.
has some, but they're doing specifically like breakfast sandwiches, quick, lunch sandwiches, like stuff that your mainstream kind of construction worker will come in and say, give me a sandwich, and but if that person is looking for something a little lighter, this option is now there. So here it is. It's a plant-based deli and bodega model, and they're going specifically for kind of mainstream, as it says right on there. The,
Mhm.
the cheese, sausage, and egg sandwich. How can you do that plant-based? Very easy today, and they're kind of providing the 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 ingredients. And here's a bunch of manufacturers that are on board. People making cheese alternatives to cold cuts, things like that. So it's a pretty cool thing, and and the best part to me is it's taking it into some of these food deserts, some of these areas where it's black and brown people who maybe are culturally not getting blasted the marketing that you know the Whole Foodsy kind of hey, eat some spirulina, eat some plant based food. That marketing isn't going into certain parts of the inner cities, and I love that Plantega is doing that. They're taking it, So yeah, check them out. They've got again. Are we saying that this is what you should eat every day? A vegan sausage, egg, and cheese sandwich? No, no, we're not saying that. However, for the people in New York City on the go who are going to grab a sandwich twice a day, wow, if you can do it with some actually often local, some of these are local brands, and if you could do it with a cruelty-free thing, a cholesterol-free thing, it's starting to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important, like if people are trying to make this transition, not to beat yourself up over it, not to, because it can be really intimidating when you first start it. I remember when I first started, I made a decision to go whole food, plant-based,
Right.
um, and I got some really good advice. I don't know, online or something I read was, start slow and just try to replace one meal a day
Yeah.
that way, and see how it goes. And I thought, oh, one meal a day, I can do that. I can have oatmeal and fruit for breakfast. That's easy enough, right? Or or something at lunch. And I thought, okay, I'll commit to doing that. And it meant not going to all of the usual places that I would go to for breakfast or lunch, out in the city. Where am I going to go? How am I going to eat? there's there's nothing, right? Like I can't get anything in a pizza place, in those days.
Right.
Um,
Right. And
I was
now
like,
there's
oh,
yeah.
after you do one or two meals, you realize, oh, there's all these other things out there that I haven't been going to because I was always going to the pizza place. I was
Right.
going to the
Right.
taco place. Um, and for me, really, really quickly, I went from doing the one meal a day to, to really all I was eating was whole food, plant-based in less than a month,
That's
maybe,
great.
maybe a week or two.
That's great.
Um, when you first do it, you think, oh, there's just no way I can do this. So if you start slow, you find out that, oh, there's a whole bunch of options. There's a whole bunch of things I can do. And before you know it, you've done it.
You've done
Um,
it. Exactly. And again, I think one of the things I'm pledging to do moving forward the last several months I've thought about it is really push back on this idea that we're limiting ourselves. I can't stand that because um, again, I've had a number of people say that over the years, and then I watch what they're eating, and every day it's the same thing. And you kind of go, wait a minute, I've had six different things in the last 4 days, and you're having, um, ham and cheese every day, or a burger, or fried chicken, or but so that's something I think in a gentle and positive way to push back and give people that positivity. Now tell me again. So your daughter is vegetarian or is still, and you
is still,
okay,
yeah,
is it? And
from a really, really early age, really wanted to do
that's
it,
great.
and has continued to do it.
And your yeah, and your
And
wife too, your whole family, or
wife has also gone over and is doing it as well. They're both
wow,
super supportive.
wow,
They're not entirely vegan. They'll still eat dairy.
yeah, yeah, that's great.
And I try to gently nudge them along to not, but still want to be a happy family.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no,
gently nudging them along.
that's the first rule. And now I can imagine that they just being very aware in any event, but also with your
Yeah, both
views
super
that
supportive of me and go out
sort
of
of
their way to find options for me. And
right.
we'll eat the way I eat when we're
Oh yeah,
eating together. And
very easy. And do they tend to, as is another goal of this show, do they tend to, when they do have dairy, tend to, much as they can, get organic or get free range, things like that? Is that a thing too, to get organic
organic for
eggs and
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, organic for sure.
great, great.
You know, I personally don't believe in free range. I
Right.
mean, I believe it exists as a thing,
Sure.
but I think it's a way of telling ourselves that, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it ends the same way for the individual, who were eating, if it was free range or not.
No,
um
that's great. That's
it's a
great.
marketing concept. And this have you seen What the Health on, or Cowspiracy on Netflix?
No, it's on my to view list. Cowspiracy is, and a friend of mine, Bob Steele, just waited. Hey, Bob. Bob says I just watched two documentaries, Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy. What an eye opener! Every day should be meatless, he says. So Cowspiracy is on my list, but what's the other one called? What the?
What the Health? Yeah, I think it's the same people. I believe
Here
it's
it is,
Anderson.
2017. Okay, great. It's a groundbreaking follow up to Cowspiracy. Okay, great. I will check that out. Um,
And of course, Game Changers, for the sports
right,
angle and for the health angle.
right, and
Good
that's
stuff.
yeah,
This and YouTube is a great place to find stuff. I mean, you can find a lot of
yeah,
disinformation as well, but Dr. Michael Greger, who does nutritionfacts.org,
right, right.
is tremendous. I'm a huge fan of his. He he presents peer-reviewed, medical journal information, but
Uh
in
huh.
a very entertaining and digestible way, so that sort of help you on the nutritional balance. Because what we've been saying, you could eat a junk food diet and be technically vegan.
Right.
Veganism is not a diet. You're not hurting animals, which is great, but don't hurt yourself either.
Exactly.
You can you
Exactly.
can
It,
you can be
it's
healthy and avoid late life disease by eating a whole
yeah.
food and plant-based diet as well.
No, that's great. Yeah, I have heard of Gregor, have not checked him out much, but I this is all inspiring to me, as the show is every week. But I jotting down a few things to check out. One question a lot of people pepper us with is, "What about your protein? What about your protein?" Talk to me about your daily relationship with protein. A, do you think about it at all? B, what are some of your go-tos? And C, do you feel any difference? Is there days where you're like, you know what? I haven't had enough protein today. I'm feeling a little slow. Tell me a little bit about that, your relationship
Yeah,
with protein.
that's a great question. Because my mom and dad would always, say that to me, or are you getting enough? Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting balanced food? Um, and this won't work for everyone, but it works for me. So I recommend it if you're a person who likes logging things and keeping track of things on your phone and just checking off lists and things. I use two apps. One is just a food logging app, where you can scan a barcode, and gives you calories and it gives you nutritional breakdown. And the other is a free app by Dr. Michael Greger. It's called the Daily Dozen. And he's identified, all of the various food groups that give you all of the nutrients that you need that are all plant-based. And it's a little checklist. So you check off your 2 servings of greens a day, or your 3 servings of beans, or your whole grains, or what have you. And you're pretty much guaranteed that you're eating nutritionally correctly. Um, I've never had a problem getting enough protein. You'll find, as you do if you're interested in doing, even just video research on YouTube, there's protein in everything. Um, some of the largest, strongest animals on Earth are not protein deficient, and all they're eating is leaves, and
Bamboo
grass.
shoots and leaves and
There's
grass. Yeah,
literally protein in everything.
yeah,
There are better sources,
yes,
than others, but it's hard not to get enough protein if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet. You're never going to be protein deficient. I've had the opposite experience, to feeling low energy and down. I found that when I switched to a whole food plant-based diet, and in fairness, also added exercise on a regular basis, even if it was just walking, or really was just walking,
yeah.
um, I felt the exact opposite of tired. I felt like I had way more energy, and I felt like I was problem solving faster in my job, and thinking more clearly and quicker,
Sure.
on my feet. Um, and that hasn't gone away. I probably wasn't thinking that quickly ever, so
Right,
it's an
right.
incremental improvement. but it was a noticeable one to me that I was actually solving technical problems at work much faster
Sure.
as this journey progressed.
That's an interesting side effect because again, and when you look at people that we've mentioned like Dean Ornish or
Mhm.
Greger or some of these other medical folks that through the years there's been so many. Gary Null, as controversial as he
Mhm.
became later years, incredible in terms of talking about the biochemical journey that's happening, the nutritional thing that's happening on the cellular level. But you raise an interesting point where if you give your brain better fats, better amounts of bioflavonoids and antioxidants and all these things that we keep reading about, but then no one optimizes, it seems. Of course, you're going to problem solve better and feel like you're thinking more clearly. And we know this, things like green tea and certain mushrooms and certain fats. So that's great to hear. Do you use spirulina by any chance? Because that's something I found is really important to me on tour because it answers a lot of questions. How about you?
I have, yeah. What was your experience using it, and what vitamins and nutrients were you getting from it? I did that
Sure.
for quite a while. I've done it off and on. It's an interesting it's an interesting thing to tell people what it is.
Yeah. So spirulina is a blue-green algae, folks. For those of you who don't know, so it's one of the most ancient forms of life on Earth. I mean, it's one of the first photosynthesizing kind of organisms that would have been in ancient water. Going back literally, millions of years. So there's many algae on Earth. And this is one of the ones that humans cultivate and eat. There's a number of them, and we know that um, in ancient Africa, they were gathering it off of lakes and drying it and using it. We know that the Aztecs, the Mayans were gathering it. We know other parts of the world in Asia they were using it. So it's goes back quite some time, and people, like with many foods, knew they were getting nutrients in them even if they didn't know the science. So spirulina goes way back. It's the first thing I'll say. And spirulina on the other end of the spectrum is incredibly future leaning because NASA is looking at spirulina and other algae and funguses and things for space travel because you can't take cows with you, you can't grow corn, you can't do a lot of stuff, um, and so that NASA is looking at spirulina. Um, uh, and they're looking at it as astronaut food for especially these really long journeys that we face. So that's kind of some background for spirulina for people who might not know. Um, so how do I use it? And just in the background, I'll put this link. This is an interesting article about NASA and how they're looking at all these different superfoods, including spirulina, because you can grow algae in space very easily. Just needs a water source and a light source. So I tend to uh, I'm really good with supplements and eating really well and taking my herbs and stuff on tour. I've really this is a real struggle for me this year to try and turn that around to where because I don't know something about the regularity of the schedule. I think on tour because I'm going to get 3 good meals. I know that I've got to have 15 hours of optimal energy. So I kind of get up on tour. I take some vitamin D. I take my uh, when I remember my over 40 multi. When I remember to carry it, but if I have it, I take it every day, and I take my spirulina. So directly to your question, I take anywhere from 5 to 8 little tablets of spirulina. I also take something called I alternate. I take something called what's it called? Ginseng Plus, which
Mhm.
is a tablet with 2 ingredients in it: spirulina and ginseng. That's it. Love that, and that I highly recommend that to anyone who has long days, anyone looking for modulating their stress,
Mhm.
optimizing energy.
It's rich in iron, antioxidants,
Well, that's exactly. Well,
protein as well.
absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things I was going to say about spirulina, it's kind of what they call "quote unquote" a perfect food. It's kind of one of the 3 perfect foods, in fact, um, more or less. And what those are typically described as mother's milk. Mother's milk is perfect. Let's think about it.
Mhm.
For the actual mammal that you're, You know,
Exactly.
so so for a rat, the optimal food is rat's milk. Optimal food for a giraffe, for a hippo, for a lion, for a dog, for a human, for a cat, for a goat, whatever mammal you want to talk about, their mother's food, their mother's milk, of course, is incredibly perfect. And by perfect, let's say what we mean by that, first of all, is all the nutrients, all the general nutrients that you need, the fats, the minerals, the vitamins, the real good balance of omega 369, the amino acids, all these things are in mother's milk. The second thing typically put in as a perfect food, neither you or I eat these, but if we're being intellectually honest, an egg. A bird's egg is another perfect food. Now, again, I don't eat them. I don't want to eat them. But if you're going to eat an egg, like say you grow the chicken in your backyard and you do everything that we would agree ethically, right up to stealing the chicken's eggs, which is a question you got to ask. But just speaking dispassionately for a minute about the nutrients, eggs are generally perfect. Again, they have all the fats, the proteins, the minerals, the vitamins, really great on omega 3 and vitamins A, D, K. All these things are in there. But then the third thing that's almost perfect is spirulina. And so that's the one I picked. And yeah, folks, if you're looking for like something that's a superfood, please look up spirulina because, you know, as Doug just said, it's got the iron, the minerals, it's got the protein, the amino acids, it's got omega 3 and all these things in rich supply. So I love it, and I think more people should know about it, whether they eat plant based or not, because it's
Are you
inexpensive.
taking it as tablets, Andre, or are you sprinkling it or putting it into shakes?
I take it as tablets usually because that's convenient on the road. I just get when I'm home. I haven't been making shakes lately the last couple of years. I want to get back into it though. But for years, making shakes or smoothies, sure, I'd have some on hand and put a scoop or two with the other, either rice protein or hemp-based protein. I like those. Not once in a while soy protein, but I tend to minimize that. But whatever I'm having, yes, a scoop of spirulina with it. And anyone out there, those naked drinks, the green ones, you might have seen them in any supermarket or 7-Eleven or Wawa. That's spirulina, the green part of any of these green drinks. So,
Have you looked into time restricted eating at all? Or are you going down that path? I've been doing that as well for a number of years, and also totally recommend it if people are interested.
Intermittent fasting is one word for it.
Intermittent fasting is another term for it. Yeah,
yeah.
It's basically giving your body recovery time where you're not digesting.
Right.
And the notion is to try to give yourself approximately 16 hours of fasting time.
That's great.
So I do that. I stop eating, mid to late afternoon, and then don't eat again until morning.
Okay.
And find myself not really hungry at night. It's good for calorie control as well.
Yeah.
But it's great for sleep. It helps you sleep better, and it's I believe it. I think it works.
You're a living example of it working. Yeah. That's great. So that's something you do on a daily basis, and you stop eating when? About 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, or?
Oh, much earlier. I stopped around usually around 2 in the afternoon or 3 in the afternoon.
So right now you're done for Monday.
I'm done for Monday. Yeah, I've been done for Monday for 2.5 hours. Yeah.
That's great. And so then you fast the rest. Do you drink some tea or water or fruit juice? Is that something?
No. The concept is to have no calories. So, but all the water. You can even have black coffee or tea. Would be minimal calories there as well.
And
but
how about?
I do a lot of water.
I'm sorry to interrupt. How about like an apple? Like, would you eat a piece of fruit or half a grapefruit or something?
No, nothing.
Wow.
Nothing at all. Awesome. I try to get 3 servings of fruit in earlier,
right?
So the impact of that is, it's not that I'm starving myself. I wound up eating pretty close to. I try to eat less than 2,000 calories a day,
right?
But pretty close to 2,000 calories a day before exercise. And so I'm basically eating two bigger meals and front loading them. In the morning is probably my biggest meal, and then lunch is the next biggest, and maybe a snack in the afternoon,
Okay.
and then
What
done.
I usually ask people in the comments, like, "What'd you have today?" Because that's a good starting point. What did you have today? What were your two meals?
Yeah, same breakfast every morning, so it's really going to bore people, but it's oatmeal with fruit and seeds, in this case pumpkin seeds, um, nuts of some kind, maybe walnuts or pistachios or almonds, a couple of bananas and a couple of berries, usually raspberry or blueberry.
That's great.
Super high antioxidant. Um, yeah, just great. I try to keep that sort of balance. It's really filling.
Yeah,
A lot of calories. It's probably 800-900 calories, and it's great. I'm pretty full for the rest of the day.
that's a good
Like
start.
a
Okay.
medium-sized lunch, vegetables and beans and rice.
That was
Um,
today, kind of veggies
yeah,
and beans and rice. Yeah,
yeah, and then I'm done.
that's great. Answering your question, yes, I have done intermittent fasting. It's been a while, and it's been on my mind. Like, okay, let's try to dial in. One of my flaws, especially when I get off a tour, is to eat late at night. Watch a movie, eat some chips and salsa. It's
Sure.
1 in the morning, and that's bullshit. You're gonna wake up feeling that, and 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 when I don't, and I eat well, and I stop earlier, a few hours before that, even, wow, what a difference! As you said, you sleep better, you feel better. So that's a well advised kind of thing that people, if you don't
Yeah,
know
and it
about that.
doesn't have to be that schedule. I think the key is that you have this range of time where you're not digesting, but
Right,
I do it at night because I can sleep through it and not even think about food,
right,
which is easier for me. But I know people who, eat into the night and then skip breakfast in the morning because
right,
they don't like breakfast,
right.
and that's cool
Definitely.
too. But the prevailing wisdom seems to be that if you're trying to stay in a circadian rhythm, meaning basically up with the sun and then into an early evening, you're
Right,
better off front loading your calories
right.
and um and then having them decline throughout the day. So that's what I've been doing, and it
That's
just works for me. But everybody's different.
exactly. No, indeed we are. Um, so cool. Couple more things, and one thing I wanted to share with people. We'll watch this together. Here is, I don't know how many people have seen this. Again, Instagram's just been great for plant. I follow so many plant-based accounts on Instagram right now, and I actually follow, because I want to hear the critics. I follow one called "Vegan is Carnivore." Have you heard of that? It's like this. It's like
I
a
have heard of that. Are they on Twitter too?
they might be. It's like an anti-vegan, like these
Yeah, yeah.
angry meat eaters who post nonsense and disinformation about plant-based diet. And but it's fun. It's interesting to read. It's interesting to see what their hang-ups are. It's interesting to see what's bugging them the most. But on the positive side, though, there's a ton of great stuff, including this. I'm going to share with people, and I think the audio should come on. Yeah, this is, well, I'll just put him on. He's a very famous vegetarian talking about another one.
Passing of Jeff Beck, a good friend of mine, and a great guitar player. It reminded me of the time we worked together many years ago on a campaign for vegetarianism. And it's great guitar playing because it's Jeff. So if you'd like to hear it, if you'd like to hear what we did and the messages of the campaign, go to this link and you'll hear them.
Whoa.
How about that? I didn't know. I think I remember like a CD or something that they did.
Hi there. With the sad passing of Jeff Beck, a good friend of mine, and a great guitar player, it reminded me of the time we worked together many years ago on a campaign for vegetarianism. And it's great guitar playing because it's Jeff. So if you'd like to hear it, if you'd like to hear what we did and the messages of the campaign, go to this link
Okay, you can't copy it. Okay, Meat Free Mondays.
And you'll hear.
Oops, let me try to copy that. Okay, great. I will try to get that in there. But yeah, what a nice message from Paul, and you know, that's what I was saying earlier too. It was shocking with Jeff Beck because he took such great care of himself, and he looked great. He did not look 78, and I've heard a number of people comment that, oh my God, that's how old he was. And again, it's not true for everyone, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. But he is somebody who I think a plant-based diet served him well. He looked great, and Paul looks great. Paul's like what, 82 or 3?
Yeah, it looks amazing.
So there's that. But the tragedy with Jeff is, wow, did not have viral meningitis on my bingo card. What the hell, right? I didn't even know this was, you heard about it, but I didn't know you could still die from that in the modern era. But very, very serious. And once it could be very quick that you succumb to that. So very tragic.
Terrible. Tom Verlaine over the weekend, right? From television.
Well, yeah.
Great guitarist.
Once we get into the other deaths out there, yeah, Tom Verlaine, and of course, David Crosby last week, and
yeah, it's been a bad week.
It's been unfortunately, and this is why it's a timely area to kind of say, well, let's do the best we can to stay here as long as we can, because you can't control anything, and meningitis could be right around the corner for any of us, but this is again part of this discussion is, let's do everything we can for the part we can control, which might be a small percentage, but why not? And I'll say for all those examples, incredible results. I'll say for you too, Doug. I mean, you look great, and I'll say it's funny because I go back about 4 or 5 years ago, when you had just gone veg, and you immediately lost a lot of weight.
A lot of weight, yeah.
And you looked kind of gaunt. You looked.
Yeah, I was going for the Glimmer Twins look. Maybe a little too far.
you were very thin, and it was normative to me because I'd seen people lose weight quite rapidly and change. But I remember definitely some people like, man, he's not eating enough. There was that vibe because you were very thin. And I have to say, I wish we had a before and after picture, but I have to say now, not only do you look great, like you're fleshed out, and you look, you don't look like you're not having enough calories, but you, and I say that with quotes around it, right? But you also, you look younger. You do.
Thank you.
Do you run into people who haven't seen you in 10 years or anything, and they say stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did lose a great deal of weight when I started this, which was excellent. And it probably was too thin for a while, but was trying to be too thin for a while. And then I kind of, I was trying to restrict calories. I thought there was some, I've been reading, there was some early evidence suggesting that if you can calorie restrict, it's also, really just good for your health. And in general. I found that not sustainable.
Okay.
So I'm still, I'm back to eating a normal, 2,000, 1,700 calories a day, generally, sometimes more, and never hungry, and happy. But
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's we can kind of wrap up on a couple fun things about New York City and plant-based, which, wow, every time I go there, there's that many more places.
Yeah, amazing, right?
Tell us, do you have a couple favorite either food trucks or favorite restaurants, or what's your go-to in New York? Like, let's say you want to, just quickly grab something, or
there's great restaurants. I mean, and they, like you said, they're popping up all over the place, just everywhere. I love this. A couple of locations. Peace Food Cafe is one. There's one in the Village, and there's one on the Upper West Side.
Okay.
Not too pricey, but just amazing food, 100% vegan.
Okay.
And you can get really just whole food plant-based, but you can also, if you're with people who are not accustomed to that, there's faux options too.
Sure.
I've had people tell me that they're just phenomenal food. Those are chickpea fries on the left and vegetable dumplings on the right. It looks
dumplings,
like
right.
both amazing. People have told me that their chicken parmesan was spectacular. I've never had that. I've always ordered really whole food based or
Sure,
raw,
sure.
but you can do that as well. There's a place called Blossom,
Look at
also in
these.
the village, and there used to be one, I think, uptown as well. I think it's still uptown as well, which is
This
great.
looks great. Yeah.
There's a number of vegan sushi places all over Manhattan now, which are just also really, really good. Um, yeah, it's hard to miss. We're spoiled for choice in New York.
Blossom. Yeah, there's Blossom. Wow. Again, look at that. And again, these places, like you said, if someone's with you who just it's too weird for them, that's where it's great that they have things like we're looking at now. Like that's
Mhm.
probably jackfruit or seitan or something like that,
Yep, yep.
and people can have kind of. I had heard about Blossom, but never been there. Didn't never even looked at their
Yeah, there you go.
menu.
Jackfruit tacos. You nailed it.
But wow, look at that.
Really
Um,
good stuff.
that's the thing too. It has moved so much past the '70s kind of brown rice and tofu and gravy sort of vibe, and there's nothing wrong with that. That sounds delicious
Mhm.
to me. But we've now got Michelin chefs, and you got people like Gordon Ramsay who does a vegan month right at his London location. You know, have you eaten in London, which I think is a vegetarian capital of the world? Have you eaten there yet?
Not since going not since going vegan. No, I haven't. And I would look forward to doing that. I haven't been to UK in a couple of years.
Okay,
Um, and struggled to eat in the UK
last time.
last
Okay,
time I was there.
sure.
But yeah, it's big vegan capital.
It really is, and people go, "What? The English? What do they know?" No, trust me, it's amazing. Not and largely because of the great immigration for centuries in England, which in a great way has brought tons of Turkish food and Indian food, Pakistani food, Sri Lankan food, Jamaican food, Spanish food, Italian. So all these different people have come there from the mainland, from the results of colonialism, from many different reasons, invasions even. So England has like all these different cultures. Actually, if you think about it, have you heard of this place in New York? This is a friend of mine, Adam, who runs Cinnamon Snail, the truck in New York. Have you
Oh,
ever?
cool. I think I have heard of it. I have not experienced it though. That looks amazing.
You know,
Wow.
really amazing. He's top notch. So definitely, you can just it's cinnamonsnail.com and he says where they are, when they are in the city, but really, really great. And they usually have lines of the food is very popular with you know vegetarian, non-vegetarian alike.
Wow, that looks
Um,
amazing.
so yeah, New York is really great. And then finally with New York, you got a mayor who's he's pescatarian, right, and just very pro. Tell me any your thoughts or what you know about Eric Adams and his food advocacy.
Yeah, I'm pleased that he's I think had just recently proposed, and we're going to do school lunch is going to have a plant-based at least one day a week, which is his initiative. And the other like famous political vegan is Cory Booker, of course.
Oh yeah, right,
And
right.
I was so bummed with Cory like sort of backed off on that. I think he was in one of the debates, if I recall, was asked about it, and he kind of like he put distance between himself because I think there's still some stigma or perceived stigma about it, and really want our leaders to dispel that, not cave to it. I like him in every other way. That was my only disappointment, was that he wasn't more outspoken. And Adams, as mayor, I think is great. He's got one initiative under his belt, and I think keep going. I think it's a great thing because eating habits start really early, and the damage that we're doing to our bodies starts really early. There's been all kinds of studies that show that on the Western diet, you start to form fatty streaks in your heart as early as age 10, eating red meat and junk food and what we usually eat as Western diet. And that's the
Absolutely.
beginning of atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries and heart disease, which nobody should ever have to deal with in their lives. It's a horrible end to life when that happens, as I've seen firsthand.
It really is. No, you said it, man. It's and it's always funny when people, when people find out someone's raising their child vegetarian. There's always this incredible. That's what I love is suddenly you're a nutritionist. When people hear that, they go, "Oh, what about the what about the B12? Oh my God!" And you're going, "Wait a minute.
What about B12? Right?
What about B12? But also
what about protein?
But also, where was that concern for the 9 out of 10 kids who are not vegetarian, who are runny nose or sick or they're getting asthma or they're all kinds of things, allergies, and no one seems to ever say, "Oh my God, is it what they're eating?" But as soon as you are a parent that says, "Oh yeah, we feed our kid plant-based," and the kid might be perfectly healthy, and I've seen this. I've seen this both as a teacher and as a natural foods retailer. It's just funny where, and we face it too, where our friends are like, "What about your protein? Oh my God!" And you're like, "Don't worry about me. Worry about the person 2 seats over who has hypertension, who has heart disease, who's on 3 drugs for diabetes and high blood pressure. Maybe ask them a bunch of questions, not me." So that's always a funny area.
You'll enjoy What the Health. I think it's a little overstated and it's a little overhyped, but the whole premise is showing people who've reversed diabetes, reversed these diseases through purely interventional diet, gotten off their meds completely. People who were, the Dean Ornish type stories. Yeah. And it does it in a very entertaining and maybe even exaggerated way, slightly for effect, but the core concepts are I believe, accurate.
That's great. No, I will watch that. And coming back to some questions, and Frank Bellina, great to see you here too. Michael Bernier, good to see you. Michael says, checking out Seaspiracy. Where's it streaming? I know it's on Gaia. I think it's on Netflix.
I think so.
It's on a couple of things for free, but Gaia.com has a bunch of cool docos and things that are about food, and I think Knives and Forks or whatever that one's called. That's on there.
Yep, Forks Over Knives.
Forks Over Knives. Sorry,
guys.
Christopher Lowry asks, any angles on why many over 50 are winding up not being able to absorb B12 naturally and B12 shots? Don't know, other than B12 is a continually interesting one that even people who eat meat and eat dairy sometimes have a B12 issue. So for a long time we've known that, and you use the word absorption in your question, Christopher, it's about absorption. And then that gets into, the little that I do know is that gets into gut health and your gut and digestive capacity to absorb nutrients, which is only optimized by a more alkaline plant-based diet. This is one of the things we see with people on keto and the zone and what's that other diet that's very popular right now? The paleo. Yeah. A lot of these things that are high animal flesh, high animal protein. A lot of those folks, not all of them, but a lot of them, vast majority, get into a really acidic condition. And part of ketosis is you want that ketosis / acidic condition. It's burning fat. It's doing this. It's doing that. You lose the weight. But one of the things in a lot of those diets is some absorption issues. I've seen it over and over and over again where those folks have to take a lot of care to combat the high or the low pH, actually, which is acidic, to combat that. So, Christopher, I would say with B12, the things I've read that are interesting is optimizing digestive capacity. So making sure you really got really good gut health. And then maybe making sure you're getting B12 from a couple different sources. And there's a lot of arguments and angles on, some say spirulina has B12, some say it doesn't. Some say tempeh, same thing. There's arguments whether it's the analog inverse form of B12. There's all kinds of discussion on B12. So you raise a great point. I tend to make sure I'm taking some, as well as the few vegan places you can get it in your diet. The good news is B12, it takes a long time to be deficient in it, and but you know, and some say it's bound up with our absorption of D also, which we tend to not be in the sunlight enough. So there's a lot of stuff in that question. Just for the future, Doug, what are your thoughts on where we're heading with plant-based? Because to me, you've got a couple threads going on. You got these young people getting into it because of the compassion and the ethical thing. You've got this huge kind of industrial side of like Beyond Foods, which I think is a better brand because they don't have the GMOs. And then you've got Impossible Food with this real like Frankenfoods kind of thing where they look like they would, you know, do whatever it takes ingredient wise to do. So you got all that, and then you've got the lab grown meats happening now. What do you see as kind of being the best way forward, like to get people to, you know, go plant based, but not jump right into another environmental nightmare? What are your wishes for moving forward?
Yeah, I think from an animal rights perspective, any vegan diet is a good vegan diet for the most part. You're not killing somebody to eat unnecessarily, and you're still able to get all of the nutrition without doing that. So why do it? But for people, you know, what I would want for everyone would be to eat a whole food plant-based diet rather than a junk food vegan diet. But you know, but let yourself off the hook if occasionally you need to have an Impossible Whopper or whatever. The world's not going to end. But I find, you know, as I age as well, you know, become more and more aware of my own mortality. I really want to eat clean and ethical, and not and do everything I can to stave off a bad end for myself and certainly for the animals and for the planet. And to my mind, at least what resonates most with me is eating a whole food plant-based, which is really produce and rice and beans and vegetables and fruit and nuts. And
That's great.
Easy and simple and inexpensive and not that exotic, you know. I went through a phase of just seeking out the strangest, oddest vegetables and sources for vitamins, and it turns out that blueberries and apples and oatmeal are some of the healthiest foods on the planet. As you pointed out, spirulina is pretty easy to obtain and super rich. Spinach, you know, these are not hard to find things. And it turns out that they're really good for you. That's
a great great place to wrap, man. No, keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
But eat as much unprocessed food that you prepare yourself. Sounds like that's been great for you. Well, that's awesome, man. Thanks, you know, so much for coming on, and it's been great to hang with you again, folks. Again, I've known Doug and Glenn. Say hi to Glenn. I've known Glenn and Doug for many years, and we get to hang around at the Yes rehearsals and talk about that great band, and just wanted to get to know a different side here of Doug, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Any closing comments? Anything we didn't hit, Doug, that you wanted to?
No, this is a lot of fun. It's like I said, it checks a whole lot of boxes for me. Talking about my favorite band of all time and veganism, you know, two of my favorite things.
That's great.
Always great to see you, Andre. This was just a lot of fun. Is your audience? Is this a vegan audience? Who is or is this,
you know,
who's listening?
It's a variety. That's what I love. First off, I simulcast it on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube.
And YouTube.
So people watch on different platforms. I find I leave it up now, and people check in, and some comments keep coming in. Mostly Facebook, and then YouTube, and then maybe Twitter, there's a comment or two. So that's most of the audience. Who is the audience? Well, I really welcome people that are not vegan, they're not vegetarian. So I'm happy to say it's a mix. I definitely get quite a few people who are vegetarian, vegan, and they trade some recipes or they talk about what did I eat today or whatever. But I have a fair amount. I'd say half the people who come in regularly they're people who just are trying to change their diet just a little bit. So hence the name of the show. I definitely get people who say, "Yay, it's my meatless day," or and what's really great though is when some of those people say, "You know what? I extended it till Wednesday this week," and I did, so that's what's cool. I'll get the private messages from people who kind of say, "You know what? I've been watching your show for X amount of months, and I just realized I have 4 new recipes in my collection." So that feels great. Just knowing that somewhere out there, someone has said, "I don't need to eat meat 3 times a day to survive." Like that's my goal, to break that ridiculous construct. And so I've been really happy that actually I want people who are not vegetarians to check this out and normalize things for them and make them realize that it's really easy. So
it really is. It's super easy, and for people who are really concerned about the science and the nutrition behind this, that YouTube channel that we were talking about earlier, nutritionfacts.org.
Yes,
is all 2-minute, 3-minute videos. It's all peer-reviewed, top scientific journals that they're citing, and makes it entertaining and easy. You can put in any concerns that you have over protein or any kind of disease that you're concerned about, and it'll tell you how to eat and what some of the causes that are linked to Western diet look like. It's really fascinating.
I'm
highly recommend it.
I'm going to put a link to that in the page right now. And it's, again, I love when it is medical doctors and scientists and biologists, which by all means doesn't have to be. I mean, the argument holds up logically just to any person who can understand and look at a cat or a dog or something and say, yeah, that those animals don't want you to cut their throat. Why would a pig or a cow? So I think you don't need the medical degrees and stuff, but I love that they're there to really only keep supporting that. You don't have to worry, folks. You will get all the nutrients you can get from plants. After all, that's where those animals are getting them. So that's awesome. I put that link up.
You're cutting out the middleman, basically.
Just
getting it direct from the plant.
Just, and for most things we can do that. A lot of this, what's interesting, the time we're going into, the choice will not be ours as much in the next coming years. We are cutting down the rainforest, removing the topsoil in the USA. We're making it problematic. We're making it so that, like this whole thing, which we didn't even touch on, the expensive eggs, that's going to be the norm, folks. Beef, eggs, chicken, these things will continue to go up because they are so expensive environmentally to manufacture.
And it's where the next pandemic is coming from, almost certainly.
The last several have been from animals, whether it's H1N1 or the bird flu. The bird flu is happening right now that caused the egg shortage. It's right under our noses, man. Right under our noses. And you're right. People are not connecting the animal nightmare with pandemics. But you're right. We will have another pandemic. And I'm afraid not so much of the pandemic, but how people are going to react, especially in the USA where we did not react well.
No, we didn't.
to the science of it. So I see that. Well, cool, man. Let's do this again sometime, and all the best.
Otherwise, great seeing you.
See you soon.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.